Hey everybody, Jim here, and today I've got another fun treat for you. It's another 9 kilowatt tankless water heater, and I think the brand name is Geesen, G-E-E-S-E-N, but the packaging doesn't give you much information vis-a-vis what's going on with it. Here, let me see if I can get this focused on you. There we go. It claims to be 9,000 watts. There's one pieces. It's got the dimensions. I'll just leave it at there. And the name brand, let's see, it looks like it's Shenzhen Chaozhong Tech Company Ltd. And that is somehow associated with some Germans in Bettinerstrasse 30 in Frankfurt. So I don't know what the Germans have to do with this, but there's a German telephone number for them, and it's made in China, so you know the quality is quite good. On the other end of the box, it's the same sticker, and then at the top, there's some more information, but yeah, there's not that much to it. So I'm going to leave this here. You can pause it if you want to read that. Let's tear this open and find out what's going on inside. Alright, I like what I'm seeing already. Comes with a shower head. Always a bonus. Oh, and I'm feeling a power cord. Oh, I love it when they come with the pigtail. That is good stuff. Already I can tell it's a little bit bigger than I would prefer. That's not a big deal. Boy, it's heavy too. What in the world? Oh, I see. It comes out this side. Oh, it's pretty. Geesen. Oh, it's pretty. Oh, I like the look of this. That is nice. Alright, so it comes with some instructions and a bracket with which to mount it to the wall. Let's have a peek at these before we get started. And the paper, it looks like it's nothing more than a 8.5 by 11. I don't even know that it's 8.5 by 11. Yeah, that's pretty close to 11. 11.5 by 8.25. So it's an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper with some printing. So I'm going to hold this up, and you can pause the recording now if you feel like reading it. Alright, it gives you the diagram. The yellow-green is always the ground. You can press the power button for 3 to 5 seconds to change Fahrenheit to Celsius. You have up, down, power is in the middle there. Alright, you got a water inlet on the right side. Cold's on the right, hot's on the left. That makes great sense. And it does smart temp, okay, with 3 different degree settings. Oh, here we go. Yeah, it says 9 kilowatts, 220 to 240 volts, which is pretty good for here in America. 50 to 60 volts, good for America, even in Florida. And you can go less than or equal to 0.6 megapascals. Wow, that's actually pretty impressive. Oh my. Suitable is 0.03 to 0.6 megapascals, and the waterproof level is IPX4. Vertical installation, so you cannot mount this sideways like a lot of them. That's okay. Yeah, and you put the bracket on the wall. Common sense would dictate that you put the hooks pointing up instead of down, but yeah, it's good that they put the instructions in here. So let's tear this apart and have a look inside to see what's going on. I'm going to avoid the warranty, so you don't have to. Alright, so the front plate is actually a sheet of glass. Sure feels like glass. Yeah, that is nice. And it's held in just by these silly little clips. And then there is a translucent window here at the bottom, just a circle. Pretty. Oh, that is pretty. Let's have a peek inside. I'm going to get you into macro mode. Alright, so right away we're seeing a little transformer that's going to step down the 220 coming in from the electric company to whatever voltage this thing is going to rely on, this circuit board. I've got a couple of Keen relays, and I'll get the details on the screen for you here in a moment. There is your very typical 90 degrees Celsius automatic cutoff switch right there in the middle. Right there, bolted right onto the kettle. That's very typical. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 screws holding the kettle in place. No screw at this end, which is just fine, I suppose. Your wires coming in, it's 3 times 10 AWG. 10 gauge wire. I don't like using 10 gauge wire for stuff that goes over 30 amps, but the manufacturer has included this. Your green wire goes directly onto the kettle, so that's definitely your ground. It's even got this fun little ground symbol here. The black and the red come in and they go off to this quick disconnect for 90 degrees automatic shutoff. I'm seeing no triac. It's just the relays driving this apparently. And so here you've got on the inlet side a flow meter, which goes off to another circuit board. And in there, I'm not seeing another temperature gauge on the cold supply line. You know what? It's probably in here. So there's probably the flow meter, 1, 2, 3, 4 wires. You probably have a flow meter and a temperature gauge on the cold supply. And then over here on the hot outlet, you have another temperature gauge, another thermostat. Okay, here in the middle, you've got a nice arrangement of various things with which one might determine what happens inside the thing. So you've got Celsius and Fahrenheit. Oh, you have it looks like it's going to tell you how many kilowatts it's consuming. We're going to find that out. And then of course you have the various buttons. We'll go over those in a moment. Again, I'm going to peek in here to see if there's a triac. Here you have what is most likely an amp meter, just a loop gauge going around here that's going to automatically kill the system if it goes over drawing too much amperage. which makes really good sense. And then here, coming in on the cold supply line, you have a nice metal connector that is secured in place by 2 screws to the clamshell, and that looks like regular old brass with a plastic sleeve inside, and it's metal, so there is a transition from the plastic to the metal and then up into the kettle, which is aluminum. And then coming out of the aluminum, you have a metal connection, and then you have a transition from the metal, which it looks like brass there, but that could just be paint, going into a metal connector. And boy, that looks like 1/2 inch, but I wouldn't connect your lines inside the thing. And it goes down on a plastic hose. That is not stainless steel braided, that is plastic, down to the hot outlet, which is then just regular old plastic with a metal grommet on the end. So here's what's happening. You have a plastic connector in the machine with a metal sleeve around it. Same thing on the cold supply. You have just a regular old plastic bit of pipe and electronics, and then a metal sleeve around the outside. I want to tease apart this panel to see if underneath it is a missing triac that I just don't see yet. No, it's just ICs on the back. No triac. And for the record, there's nothing holding the top end of the board in place. It's held in place by just these 2 standoffs at the back end. So I'm watching this video, and sure enough, as I'm watching it, I spot the triac right there on the cold inlet to the kettle. I'm including the picture of it here. So just so you know, there is a triac in there, and it's probably good for 60 amps. Sorry about that. So far I'm seeing nothing that would raise any concerns. The 2 relays are going to do a fine job. These 2 relays are going to be just fine. I'm not seeing any real issues with the board. You got a couple of the old style capacitors, but I'm going to let that slide. There's a third, a fourth one, and a fifth one. Eventually these fails. These electrolytic capacitors, they fail over time, but I'm just going to let that slide. Let me zoom in a little bit. Yeah, no real issues. So these cost about 140 bucks, and for $140, you're definitely getting your money's worth. Let's look at the dielectric coils inside the kettle. I mean, we can't see inside the kettle, but we can get a feel for what's going on at this end. So here at this end, you see it looks like there are 1, 2, 3, 4 coils, and they're powered by the blue wire and this black wire, which go off to, let's find out. They go off to this board here. So you're getting the electricity from these relays on the black wire, and then the blue wire goes off to the quick disconnect. Alright, so you get 4 coils, and they apparently loop down and then go back out so that the water, as it comes in, it sluices right over these 4 coils and then comes out of the hot side. Alright, all very simple, very straightforward stuff. This all just seems boilerplate. It's going to be fine. I don't have any issues with the inside of this thing. Let's move on to the test. I seem to have broken off one of the clips. Two of the clips. The warranty is definitely voided. Oh, it sounds like a third one. 4, 5. Oh, what a design. One of my friends was telling me about how he liked tank water heaters because he was an old Boilermaker and had been for decades. And now he's in his 70s, and because of his experience as a Boilermaker and as a owner of tank water heaters, he can swap out a tank water heater in half a day. I told him, hey man, I can swap out a tankless water heater in half an hour. So it looks like from the back here, this cable comes out and it can go either to the right, to the top, or off to the left. I'm going to bend this. It looks like it's sort of inclined to go to the right from the manufacturer. I'm going to bend it up to go through the top. The package comes with 4 screws, but there are only 2 places to put screws, so I'm just going to use the 2. Let me get an estimation of how high this must be. Pretty high. Okay, up there at the top. All right. Now this bracket seems like it's pretty high quality. It feels like stainless. It looks like stainless, but I can't be sure. I'm just guessing that there's some chromium component in that steel. Let's see how this hangs up there. Alright, that is nice and tight. There's no slop at all. Very nice. Let's get it connected. Now when I'm installing these, I always tend to go hand tight plus a quarter turn, especially on these rubber conical seals. Let's see how this works. Now if you go a quarter turn past hand tight and it's not tight enough, it still leaks, you can go another eighth or another quarter turn to get it tight. There we go. Quarter turn. Feels good. And a quarter turn. Cool. Let's get these wires hooked up. I am really liking these sleeves, these little shoelace connectors at the end that come from the manufacturer. Very nice. The cord's a little short, but it'll be okay. Now the green one's a hair longer, so I'm doing this one last. Tight, tight, tight. That's as tight as it's gonna get. Let me get you a nice close-up view of that. So here you can see the two hots go off to these two leads, left and right, and naturally this is off the breaker box, and it's off here, but the ground, the green-yellow, although it's just green, goes into the ground bus, which is then connected to the electrical panel over there. Alright, let's get this evacuated of air. I'm going to chase all the air out of here, and then get this hotted up and do a test. Alright, so the lines are charged. Let's evacuate the air. That should do it. The kettle doesn't hold but a few centiliters of water or air, so there's no air in this device anymore. There's no air in the lines, but I am going to sit and wait for 20 minutes to see if there are any leaks. So I'll come back and see you in just 20 minutes. Well, it's been almost an hour, and these hoses are dry as a bone. Alright, so we are ready to turn this phone appliance on. Let's get that done. Oh, it's pretty. Let me get you a good shot. Alright, so currently it maybe thinks that it's 0 degrees Fahrenheit. A lot of the other ones, what they'll do is they'll tell you what the temperature in the kettle is, or at the hot outlet. But I don't think it's fair. I think it's just off. So let me turn it on. All right, it's on. That was cute. The little white line in the middle grew. I'm going to turn it up. Oh, look at that. Okay, so maybe on this side it's 59 degrees, but on this side it tells you what temperature it should be, or what it's going to produce. And then in the middle it's something else. Let's figure this out. All right, so you got 59, 62, and 113. I'm gonna figure this out. Let me pull open these detailed instructions, all one page of them, and it doesn't say. All right, there's nothing in here that says what these numbers are. They just show up. I don't know what they do. So let's start some water flowing through this thing. Ah, here we go. It's got two symbols up here, one for ground and one for ELCB. Let's see what that does. All right. It just says display screen. It doesn't tell you anything. All right. I'm going to turn on the hot water and see what happens. Oh, that's pretty. It's got the green circle going around it. And it's ramping up pretty quickly. So it looks like this is the outbound temperature. Maybe this one over here was the inbound temperature. I see, and it's been running for 1 minute, perhaps? I don't know. What does this button do? 102. Oh, I see, these are presets. 102, 107, and 109, but I want 113 because that is a good temperature that will not scald my children. Alright, so I set it for 113, and it's coming out at 113. Okay, I don't know why it went to 123 just then. So it's got the shower head dripping some drops, and the green circle. I wonder what this M does. I'm going to try it. Oh, that's cute. Different measurements. So you got 59 is the inbound, perhaps. 02 minutes, perhaps. Maybe that's what it is. Over here you got 2.7 liters per minute, I'm guessing. We're going to test that. First, let's test the temperature of the water. Oh, that is hot. Alright, so it looks like it is 110 degrees. So it's telling me that it's 113, but it's only producing 110 degree water. And this thermometer is pretty accurate. It might be 111, but I think it's off by 2 degrees. It's thinking about it. Alright, so I'm going to say that's pretty accurate. If it gets within 2 degrees, I'm pretty content. Let's test the flow rate. So I have this faucet wide open, but it's not running at 1.5 gallons per minute. I'm pretty sure it's running at a much slower rate. So we're going to figure this out. Oh, thanks for telling me I've got a low battery. Are you ready? Let's go. So at a rate of 1 minute and 11 seconds per gallon, that's going to be a little bit more than 3/4 of a gallon per minute. Let's go, let's say that it is 8/10 of a gallon per minute. All right, so at that flow rate, it's very reasonable to get a 60-degree rise from the intake temperature at what I guess was, I think I was 62, and it's going to go up to 112. That's only 50 degrees. I want to see just how hot this thing can get. Let me pump this up. Okay, so it looks like the inlet temperature is 64 degrees, and the max, oh no, it looks like it'll go a little more. The max is 131. Sweet. Let's see if it'll produce 131 degree water. Alright, you know what? That's pretty close. I'm going to be pretty content if it goes up to 129. Let's see how many watts it's drawing. Alright, so I'm getting a good look at this. It looks like the max amps coming out is not 37 or 38, but instead just 33 or 32. That means it's much closer to 8,500 watts than 9,000 watts. So I think I'm ready to make a decision on whether or not to recommend this thing. All told, honestly, the thing is beautiful. It's a bit large, much larger than what I'm used to. So, well, that's just great. Here we go. So it is 17 inches tall by 10 inches wide, and then 2.25 inches deep. So the thing's enormous. It's a little bit larger than I'd like it to be for a device or an appliance that you might tuck underneath your kitchen sink in order to add some warmth to the water as it passes through the hot and cold rails to reach the fixtures in your bathroom and kitchen. But honestly, I think having seen the inside, the space is well used. It's not wasted like in some other tankless water heaters that I have reviewed. There's nothing particularly special going on inside of the device. But then again, at the same time, there's nothing bad going on inside this device. This appliance is is very well made. I love the beautiful blue glass. It's a nice objet d'art, or a point of interest as you're walking by it. It's quite pretty. It seems to work pretty well. The thermostat inside seems to be off by about 2 degrees, but I can't really complain about that. And certainly for $140, I don't see a real problem. This is actually a really good value for the price. That the clips all snapped off, or most of them did. This is still pretty tight along the edge here, because the 2 clips at the top and the screws at the bottom hold the front on just fine. But I think what happened is the manufacturer, the engineers that made the clamshell, didn't plan for any maintenance. They just said, let's just snap it together, and if somebody tries to pull it apart, the clips will all snap off. I don't care for that design, but if it's not your intention to tease it apart to make YouTube videos and show people the insides, then this will probably work out just fine for you. Again, it's $140 on the big box internet website that everyone uses to consume these things. The half-inch NPT works out really well. You can just put in these braided cables, and then if you're installing it underneath your kitchen sink or bathroom sink, you can put in these brass splitters such that this appliance is between the hot and cold rails in your house. It consumes 33 amps, and it runs on a 10 gauge wire, 10 AWD, or American wire gauge. I don't like appliances, honestly, that run over 30 amps on 10 gauge wire. I'd much prefer 8 gauge wire, but this is what the manufacturer included with it. And honestly, I'm really grateful that they include the pigtail that goes up and then into the back. I don't have any real complaints about the thing. I think it's just fine. I think that it'll work for you. Certainly if you live south of I-10 or south of the 25th parallel, if you're that close to the equator, the water's going to come out of the ground at the very coldest, maybe 60 degrees Fahrenheit. And at a slow flow, with a low flow shower head at 1 gallon per minute or 1 1/4 gallon per minute, you can coax this thing into adding 60 degrees to that, certainly 50 degrees, and get a nice hot shower. It'll burn your clothes if you feel like it. It'll produce the hot water that cooks your clothes if that's the thing you're into. I like washing mine in cold water because it just makes the clothes last forever, and then I like to hang dry. So yeah, my clothes last a long time. All told, I honestly can't complain. I would recommend this appliance to anyone who would want to buy it. It's a little tall for my tastes, but other than that, just fine. Well, I sure learned a lot making this video, and I hope you did too. Thanks so much for watching.